too. And yes. It is the Castworthy podcast. I am here with the good VP of research on this fine Wednesday Eve, February 5th. It's a lot to talk about. We are missing our captain in chief, our scumbag himself. I don't know what else to call him, but my cousin of 30 something years. Big Steve is doing grown man stuff. So he has tasked the two of us to charge without him until we can get him back. But before we go in, I am EJ Stewart, the sophisticated savage one this week, joined by the VP of research. How are you there, sir?
What's going on? What's going on?
He's fired up, ready to go. Before we get into it, Castworthy Podcast can be found at Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, which is very important. Spreaker, shout out to the good people at Spreaker that make it so easy for us to distribute to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Iheart Radio, Google Podcasts, Castbox, Deezer, Podcast Addict, and Podchaser. We're also streaming our videos on YouTube. You can catch us on Twitter at Castworthy, on Instagram, Castworthy, one word, Castworthy _ podcast, and on Facebook on Castworthy. Share, subscribe, give us your comments, let us know what's going on, all of that good stuff, man. And as you know, this podcast covers a wide range of topics, politics, sports, and urban drama. With all that said, VPSC, your grades are coming through the camera.
Yeah, man. Getting old.
Getting
young.
Getting. You mean you are? How you doing there, man? How's the family? How's everybody?
Yeah, everybody's good, man. Everybody's good. It's funny you said that. My wife was just she showed me something early tonight where it said it was like they say 40's the new 30 and 50's the new 40. But as I get older, 9 o'clock feels like the new midnight.
Facts. You ain't lying about that. Man. That's all good though. We're gonna move right on ahead there, man, and let's get into it. So Super Bowl, culmination of weeks and weeks of trash talk, weeks and weeks of fantasy football, weeks and weeks of who is going to win. I think for the both of us being AFC East fans, we are just happy it wasn't Tom Brady.
Yes, facts. Man, I thought this one was a good game, man. Sometimes we get to those Super Bowls where it's just, it's like you get more enjoyment watching the commercials than the actual game. And this one actually was a game. So it, like, as a fan, even though your team is not in it, it was enjoyable to watch to begin with, right? And I remember last podcast I said, oh man, Kansas City, they've been playing bad in the playoffs. They've been getting down double-digit leads. If that happens against San Fran, I think they're going to lose because San Fran has a legitimate defense, and Mahomes and them boys go out there and show, you've played football, and any coach in any sport where there's time involved will tell you got to play 60 minutes football. You got to play 48 minutes basketball. You can't leave no wiggle room. You got to play a whole complete game. And a team like Kansas City shows you why that's important. And it seems like no lead is safe against these guys. You know what I'm saying? They're down 24-0 against Houston, and they come back like in a matter of minutes. You know what I mean? They're down to Tennessee. They come back within minutes. You know, they're down in the fourth quarter, double digits against a team with a legit quarterback, legit running game, a legit defense. And it seems like this thing is over. Garoppolo's about to get from under Brady's thumb. He's going to be his own man, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And Mahomes, Andy Reid, and them boys just show no lead is safe when you're playing us. When you're playing us, you need to be up by 100 if you want to win, and that might not be enough, you know. So it was just a good game, man. You know, shout out to them boys, man. You know, that was just a great game to watch, man. Shout out to KC and their fans and everybody with the team, etc.
So with that said, I mean, do you feel like shout out to the offensive coordinator, shout out to Andy Reid for finally getting one. But do you feel like this loss or this win is more on the success of Kansas City or the once again potential implosion or failure of the Shanahan clan?
So on your last comment about the offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy, I saw somebody on Twitter said they were like, it's a good thing Eric Bieniemy is black. That way Andy Reid don't got to worry about losing none of his assistants. So,
right. You can come back with the same offense next year.
Right. So I think it's a little bit of both, right? So, you know, I don't necessarily think that San Fran gave it away, right? Because Mahomes went out there and did his thing. That late touchdown, the one that they reviewed where it looked like he might have not have bounced, it was super close. I thought he didn't get it, but I felt like however it was called on the field was how it was going to end up because it was that close. So I don't think that the refs screwed him, but it was a very, very close touchdown. With that being said, though, Kyle Shanahan, there's been 3 teams in NFL history that have blown fourth quarter double-digit leads in the Super Bowl, and 2 of those teams are coached by Kyle Shanahan. So, you know, this just genius label that this guy has, I think that has to go away to begin with. Also, when Patrick Mahomes threw that pick in the late in the game, that fourth quarter pick, when they were still up by 10 at that point, the next 8 plays, they ran the ball only 3 times, 5 throws, 3 runs. And you would think that the coach who literally let his lead go away by not running the ball when he was up 25 points would say, man, let me run the ball and protect my lead when I'm only up 10 points, right? That's 1. 2, okay, you could give him a little bit of benefit of doubt with the Atlanta situation because Atlanta was more of a pass heavy team that year. You got Matt Ryan, you got Julio Jones, you know, so you could see them throwing the ball. In this case, San Fran is more of a running team. They run to set up the pass. And you're not doing what you do best, which is run the ball. And by not doing that, you're saving clock and you're just leaving Mahomes more and more time to come back and get you. And that's exactly what happened. So Kyle Shanahan fucked it up again.
Yeah, I mean, and screwed me up from my prediction because almost everything that I said would happen about San Fran's front 4, the defense, the
Beast.
pressure, you know. But this guy, like you said, they wound up with 22 total rushing yards when they have Tevin Coleman back there. They've got Tevin Coleman. Why do I feel like I was gonna say Tevin Campbell? Tevin Coleman. And the other guy, Mostert, who's rushing his tail off, and a San Francisco O-line in which Kansas City literally, I think the Honey Badger at one point said we couldn't stop it. Yeah. So it's like this is where we always agree. We always talk about how coaches in these big moments, they get up against guys like Bill Belichick, and they get so intimidated and they outcoach themselves.
So
Yeah, go ahead. Oh no. I'm here. I'm here. I'm just ex- just experimenting. Just experiment with this joint
but
here.
uh but nah, you're 100% right, man. Coaches, they get in these big moments and they go away from doing what they do and they start experimenting. And if it works, yeah, you look like a genius. But when
Mhm.
it don't work, everybody's like, what the fuck were you thinking? What happened to the stuff that got you there? You
Mhm.
know? And that shit is just, it's crazy to me, man. Like, especially when you got that experience of blowing a 25-point lead in the Super Bowl. You're playing against a team who you see come back from down 24, come back from however many they were down to Tennessee.
Mhm.
And instead of saying, let me do what we need to do to secure this game, to get this ring, you're still out there throwing the ball all over the place. That's it don't make no sense.
And Jimmy G is Jimmy G, for whatever it's worth. And let's just give Kansas City's defense some credit. Their defense is pretty tough. People forget that Kansas City was the only team really outside of Tennessee to manhandle the Ravens.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying not comparing one offense to the other, but Kansas City defense is pretty good. So now you're putting Jimmy in a situation where he's used to handing the ball off and getting comfortable behind his O line and behind his running game. So now you're just doing everything wrong. And the formula says, well, you have a lethal quarterback, keep his ass off the field and run the football. Keep it simple,
Exactly.
stupid. Like KISS. Like that's one of the basic things you learn as a football player from literally up on, to college. And I just don't, I'm like you, I just don't get it. Kyle Shanahan, there you go, another one. you know. So yeah. Sticking with football though, and I want to go to the Hall of Fame selections.
Well,
Um,
well,
oh, go ahead, go ahead.
real quick on this with the thing.
Super Bowl or
Somebody, yeah, with well, not necessarily the Super Bowl, but
okay.
KC. I think also with KC, with the way that this team is built, with some of the young talent they
Hmm.
got a great coach in Andy Reid. Great offensive coordinator. They got a guy who's going to be a stud for many years to come,
Hmm.
in Mahomes, and
Hmm.
then especially if Mahomes and Tariq Hill can stay together, they do some things on defense, etc. That team can be they potentially could be a dynasty, man, the way that team is built.
Hmm.
But the one thing that I would caution, because when you look at the way that team is built, especially with some of those young guys, I feel like KC is kind of on the bubble. They can become the Patriots, not necessarily, 6 rings, but they could go on a run and win, 2 championships, maybe, possibly even a back to back, who knows? Or they can become the Seattle Seahawks, right? A
Right.
team that was loaded with talent. And then when they got time for guys to get paid, everybody was trying to get the bag, and they had to end up blowing the team up because you can't pay everybody with the salary cap. So they're talking about Mahomes being able, like, once his contract is up, to get that 200, be the first player to get a $200 million deal, and he would definitely deserve it. But I
Hmm.
wonder if Mahomes says, hey, I got enough off-field income, pay me, 175, 180 or something like that,
Hmm.
to keep some cap space in there for them to continue being good, kind of like a Tom Brady did.
Well, it's definitely going to have to happen in some regard. And the other thing is the market, though. Seattle, as good as that team was, the market for football out there, it isn't like the Dallas, it isn't like the New Yorks. Sorry as teams can be, it's still not a market for it. But Kansas City has a little bit more, I think, of a chance at that. And Mahomes is the key. I think the better comparison will be like Golden State in this instance, because that team goes where Mahomes goes.
Mm-hmm.
So he gets hurt, they're shit out of luck. They're pretty fucked.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so it's kind of like that Golden State flow where if you lose some guys here and there, you're pretty screwed. But on defense and offense, I mean, they've got some good pieces. They're gonna have to pay some of those guys on the D line, probably in the next year or so. But the other good thing is, they'll be able to draft and fill some holes. And the AFC has been, pretty up and down. I mean,
Mhm.
outside of Baltimore and really outside of Baltimore and you got to throw in the Patriots just because. But we don't know what the status of that team is going to be. Um,
Right.
they have a great shot. The other thing on top of that, before jumping in the Hall of Fame, this offseason and the free agency with the quarterbacks and everything going on, the league could potentially be shaken up in ways that we've never seen before. There are a ton of quarterbacks out there in free agency, some vets and some teams and situations that are really going to be looking for some quarterbacks to really fill some holes.
Yeah.
So the AFC, we really don't know what that's going to look like next year.
Right. That's a great point with the quarterback situation, because you got Philip excuse me, you got Philip Rivers out there, you got the Tannehill Mariota situation in Tennessee. I thought Eli might have been available. I was actually really surprised that Eli retired. I thought that
Mhm.
he would try to give it another go, especially knowing that before the season ended, there were going to be multiple open quarterback positions throughout the league. So I
Mhm.
thought that he would give it another season or two, but he retired. But who knows? He could come back if it's the right situation. You never know with these guys.
Mhm.
Um, so
Bridgewater's
yeah,
out there.
yeah, Bridgewater is out there. So it's definitely going to be an interesting year next year. And just like you said with the AFC, it's always up and down. It's usually, you got somebody pretending, and then there's the Patriots. But now, with Brady
Unfortunately.
being, yeah, with Brady being so long in the tooth, like he played well, but compared to Brady, he didn't have that great of a season. You know what I mean? It was an average season for him. So
Mhm.
who knows what's happening with that situation? And while the Patriots are on the way down, you got your Baltimores and your KCs on the way up.
Mhm.
So it'll definitely be interesting to see what happens in the AFC, as well as with all these quarterback shuffles that's out there as well.
Yeah, in Tennessee, I think will be interesting to see. Not more so. I think Derrick Henry is getting a lot of attention, rightfully so.
Hmm.
But I think the quarterback situation there will make the difference. Tannehill proved to be who we thought he was late. But if you say you get a guy like Cam Newton there eventually, that might be interesting because if
Yeah.
Cam returns to be any shell of himself, you now have a dual threat backfield with somebody who can actually stretch the field deep. And actually, if they come back to anything like their MVP form, you get them some pieces on the outside. They had some guys. I mean, and that defense, that Tennessee defense is some pieces away, some free agent pieces away where they might be a little scary. So yeah, I mean, you like you said, KC could wind up being a dynasty, at least getting another one at some point in the next 5 years.
Uh-huh.
Travis Kelce is that's a huge piece of their puzzle because he's just phenomenal.
Yeah.
I think he doesn't get a lot of credit for his in-game smarts and just knowing where to sit down in the hole. And they give him a lot of option routes, which is for a tight end of that skill set is extremely scary. I don't even think Gronkowski played that way with a lot of option routes. I know Aaron Hernandez at one point did that a lot because he was able to stretch the field and just know where he was at. But yeah, I mean, I think this season overall, if I had to give it a grade, I would give it a B plus, leaning almost to an A,
Hmm.
just because of parity and the competition and the unlikely heroes and the unlikely teams that we saw rise. And I think next year might be even better. What do you think?
Nah, I definitely agree with you. I thought that it was a really good season. Um, the thing that I always love about football is that, like you said, there's parity in football. As good as your team is, you got it, any given Sunday,
Mhm.
and that's how Tennessee beats Baltimore. You go into the playoffs thinking, okay, I can just tune out into the AFC Championship between KC and Baltimore, and oops, here's Tennessee. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's the thing that's great about football, unlike the NBA. Whereas, as long as there's not injuries, you can pretty much predict what's going to happen in the playoffs once you see the seeding. And
Exactly.
you can't do that in football. And so I thought it was a really good season. Super happy for Andy Reid. I like him as a coach. He seems like one of the good guys,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm excited for next year, man. I'm excited for my Dolphins, see what we do with our draft picks, see what direction we go in. Um, Also another thing too, man. I think I posted it in our chat,
Mm-hmm.
in our group chat about Andy Reid. Like I did. It's one of those things where it's how like it's something but you don't. It's like not front of mind until somebody kind of brings it up,
Mm-hmm.
And the person posted about Andy Reid drafts Donovan McNabb,
Yeah.
has him black quarterback with the Eagles,
Yeah.
10 plus years. Then he takes Vic after Vic gets out of jail, gives him a starting job, huge contract, and then he drafts Mahomes out of nowhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so you see a lot of coaches not giving black quarterbacks their due. It seems like, he runs too much or he's too reckless, or he doesn't have the vision or whatever other kind of shit they can kind of throw out there that means he's black,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and it don't seem like that's necessarily Andy Reid's deal, since he's just rocking with black quarterbacks, and even though he didn't win a championship with McNabb, him and McNabb had great years together, and it seemed like Vic was gonna do some damage too. Things just didn't come to fruition in Philly, but shout out to Andy Reid, man.
Yeah, you figure, had they been able to keep the band together in Philly, with T.O., because I mean T.O. was he added that special spark to get them over. So you got to figure, man, if they were able to keep the band together, who knows what could have happened in that situation.
Yeah.
Um yeah, I wanna touch into the Hall of Fame real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Um and you might you might agree with me on this aspect of things. So we had the semifinalists. Where are my finalists? Modern era finalists. So going to the Hall of Fame, Steve Atwater. No, is this the wait a minute? No, these are the finalists. So where the hell is the 2020 class?
You looking for the people who got in or the
Yeah, yeah,
finalists?
yeah. I got the finalists. I got the finalists up, but that's not exactly who's going in though, right?
Nah. So the finalists are the ones who they're gonna pick from the finalists for who actually goes in.
Goes in, correct. Okay.
So
So I got
so
the
for the
modern
finalists,
era
I got
finalists.
I got Troy Polamalu, Edrin
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Zach Thomas,
Yes.
Bryant Young, Richard Seymour,
Yes.
John Lynch, Steve Atwater,
Yep.
Leroy Butler,
Uh-huh.
Reggie Wayne,
Yep.
Torrey Holt,
Yep.
Isaac Bruce,
Yep.
Sam Mills,
Uh-huh.
Tony Baselli,
Yep.
Alan Faneca, and Steve Hutchinson.
Interesting. Yep. So, and I'm not gonna spend too much time on this, but I've been in constant debate over this finalist list. I have a problem with Troy Polamalu being on this soon.
Mm-hmm.
And here's why. Troy Polamalu, phenomenal player, second best safety of his era. Not gonna
Mm-hmm.
say all time, because I think some people, and I call him overrated. Not and I think people think that the saying overrated is such a negative thing, saying somebody's trash. No, he is the second best safety of his time, of the 2000s, behind Ed Reed. Ed Reed is arguably the best safety to ever play all time. Troy Polamalu finished with about 700 plus solo tackles and 32 career interceptions. Steve Atwater, however, had about 1,000 tackles and I think about 50 interceptions, maybe 40 something. And he's just now becoming a modern era finalist. I say that Troy Polamalu, based on the time that he stopped playing to now, I say that he is overrated in the sense that I don't think he should be getting this consideration right now at this time. While he was great in the 2000s, I don't think all time he should be getting considered now. And this is going to sound strange for me, being a Jets fan. I think Zach Thomas as a linebacker, I think he has 7 Pro Bowls, 5 first team, all team defensive awards. Sack numbers were pretty solid. He's 5th all time in tackles. 5th all time. That means only 4 other people as a defenseman have more tackles than him. That's my argument. And I hate to be saying this about a Dolphins fan. I mean, about a Dolphins player. But people are saying Troy Polamalu is a definite lock. I just don't agree. I think he was a phenomenal player for the 2000s. I think he was the second best safety of that era. But I think he should wait behind a guy like Zach Thomas. That's my stance. Can't hear you. Lost your audio there. I'm gonna carry along till you get back in on there. And I just think people are looking at the word overrated as a bad thing. I'm not saying Troy Polamalu sucks. I am not saying I'm not saying Troy Polamalu sucks. I'm just saying I think based on his body of work, this is too soon for him to be a lock. As a defensive back, I don't care whether he's a strong safety, free safety, corner, he's only had 32 career interceptions. That doesn't sit well with me. He was a phenomenal player, game changer, the whole 9. But in comparison to the other guys and what they've done, I can't do it.
And I have to agree with that, man. Even putting my biases as a Dolphins fan aside, and I loved Zach Thomas, like those Zach Thomas, Jason Taylor years.
I hated him. I hated them. Hated them.
Those Zach Thomas, Jason Taylor years for the Dolphins defense, man. Those were some phenomenal years for us. But even throwing that aside, man, I have to totally agree with you. And I think part of the reason that this happens is that the Hall of Fame is not necessarily a merit-based thing. It seems like it's more of a it's almost like a fan thing, like the way that fans vote for, Pro Bowl or All-Star game with the NBA or All-Star game with baseball, etc. And because the people who are the gatekeepers to the Hall of Fame are sports writers, right? Whether it be ESPN, Fox Sports, CBS, whatever, but it's a bunch of sports writers who are making these decisions. And these guys are fans themselves. But Troy Polamalu is somebody who was a fan favorite. You know what I mean? He seemed like he was a very nice guy. He was a hard hitter, when he was out there, putting the wood on people or whatever. The hair stuff, people love that. But I think that's part of it. It's just that because he was such a good guy and people were such fans of his, it's how he's getting in over a guy like Zach Thomas, who should have been in the Hall of Fame already. I think this is like the second or third year that he's been snubbed. And then when you look at who's going in over him, it's like what are they waiting for? You know what I'm saying? And
right.
it brings me back to the thing that happened with T.O., when it was time for him to get into the Hall of Fame, where you have a receiver who's in pretty much, top 5 in almost every receiving category, top 3 in most, especially the ones that count, like receptions and yards and things like that. And you make him wait for the Hall of Fame because you have some personal issues with him, oh, he wasn't a good teammate and all that kind of crap like that. At the end of the day, this thing should be about the numbers, or how they made Michael Irvin wait because he had some drug charges or whatever. You know what I mean? And that's the problem with the Hall of Fame, is that the gatekeepers are sports writers who feel like it's their job to protect the game and all this crap like that. And it's complete bullshit. And you can say the same thing in other sports, not so much basketball, but like baseball. I'm not a huge baseball fan, but the whole like Pete Rose scenario with baseball, not to get off topic, is something that's always rubbed me the wrong way of how you could have a guy who has such a phenomenal career and you deny him from the Hall of Fame based on something he did after his playing career, but when he was a coach. That makes absolutely zero sense to me, man.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. It's a popularity contest, and just for the point of fact, Atwater had about 1,100 tackles, but 24 interceptions. Very similar stylistic players in Palomalu and Atwater, but again, the difference here is Palomalu had a combo total of about 7 something, 32 intos. Steve Atwater been playing since the freaking 80s and is just now, getting consideration. Again, I mean, I think Troy Polamalu, the second best safety in the 2000s, game changer, great player, I think should get in down the line. I just don't think he should get in right now based on everything that we talked about. Zach Thomas, I mean, when you're talking about 5th all time, that's just there's only 4 other people that's made as many tackles. It's nothing to talk about. I mean, it's nothing to talk about. It's incredible. But
and when you
go ahead.
and when you talk about interceptions, which is what Polamalu will be doing as a DB, regardless of you're playing safety or an actual cornerback, with 32 interceptions, Polamalu has 17. I mean, Zach Thomas has 17 career interceptions at linebacker. So he's somebody who's not constantly having the ball, thrown in his direction or whatever. And he had 17 interceptions versus a guy whose job it is to get interceptions only had 32, along with all the tackles like you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, and Zach Thomas, not to mention, I think had 120 and a half sack seasons. I think he had one season where he had 20 and a half sacks. And when you look at his numbers and you compare them to a guy like Urlacher, I think the only thing Urlacher, no, I'm lying. He has 20 and a half career.
No, 20 and a half career, not season career.
I'm wilding. He has 20 and a half sacks over his entire career. He has 1,734 tackles total. When you look at that and you compare it to a guy like Urlacher, who I think only beat best him in sacks, because I know he doesn't have. I know he's like Urlacher, like 18th on the tackle list, all time.
Yeah,
but you're talking Zach Thomas is 5th all time. And when you look at that and Urlacher getting in, Urlacher has about 21 sacks more over time, but he has 400 less tackles, and his intos might be up there. Intos 22. So if Urlacher was able to get in and Zach Thomas isn't in, I just don't understand it by now. But as a Jets fan, I got to take the bias out, and I hope Zach Thomas gets in. But let's shift gears on that quickly. Just want to say, everybody keep Puerto Rico in your thoughts and prayers. Shit just can't get any easier for them. With these quakes and just the damage that's going on. So definitely shout out to the Boricua and all of the family in Puerto Rico and all of the good people out there. Castworthy is with you, and we're thinking about you. Yep. But on to the nitty gritty. It's been a good couple of days of politics. We had the Iowa Caucus. What was the debacle of the Iowa Caucus?
Yeah.
And the State of the Union address, and some shenanigans and Republican infighting seemed to be. VP, this is your area of expertise. Let's start off with the Iowa Caucus, man. How did that whole thing make you feel?
Man, so with the Iowa caucuses, I was excited for it, even though I think Iowa is overrated as a state in the nominating contest each election cycle. But I was excited for it just because I'm kind of a political nerd. So it's like, oh, we're getting into, campaign. Iowa is kind of the kickoff of campaign season, right? And for the Democratic Party of Iowa, this thing was a complete and utter disaster. I mean, I don't know if it was possible for it to go worse than it did. And the thing about it, the thing that's so bad about it is that, we're saying the Democratic Party is supposed to be the party of government, right? We tell people, hey, the government doesn't want to run your life, but there's things that the government can do to help your life, and right. It's hard to sell that message that, the government can do things for you when they're fucking up things as simple as an election, and yeah, man. And I mean, and they do this thing once every 4 years. So you would think that they would be ready to go, given that they're the first nominating contest of the cycle. So all eyes on them. They've had 4 years since the last one. And so you would think that they would be ready for prime time. And I mean, it was just a total disaster. I've been saying for a while that I think that Iowa shouldn't go first, for the Democratic Party, at least, because of its lack of diversity. Iowa is a state that's about 95% white, and the Democratic Party is a extremely diverse party, especially when you compare it to the Republican Party. I also think that caucuses are the dumbest form of an election, if you want to call it that. But with what happened in Iowa last night, I think that on the Democratic side, caucuses are dead. I don't think that we see another caucus on the Democratic side, whether it's the Iowa caucus or the Nevada caucus or any other states that are caucus states. So I think caucuses are dead. And I also think Iowa will not be first anymore on the Democratic side. The last 3 Iowa caucuses, there's been problems. 2012 with on the Republican side, election night, Romney's announced as the winner. A couple days later, they say, "Oh shit, we fucked up. It was actually Rick Santorum that won." And then by the time you get to South Carolina, they come out and say, "Hey, we realized we really fucked up. Rand Paul actually won." And then it was another disaster between Hillary and Bernie in 2016, and then 2 days ago. So we got to move on.
We're still waiting. We're still officially waiting for the results, aren't we?
Correct. Only about 90% of the results are in 2 days later.
So we're still waiting for the official results. And on top of that, what do you feel? I mean, you pretty much summed it up on how you feel about it going forward, what it means, the weight of it. But how telling do you think now, knowing how close the results are, how telling is this to what we may see for the actual Democratic nominee?
It's kind of tough to answer that question, only because of, like I said earlier, with the lack of diversity in Iowa, given that the base of the Democratic Party is Black people, and we haven't really got to a contest yet that's going to have a good bit of Black people who are part of the voting pool. So it's hard to answer that question now. However, with that being said, an election, regardless of who is actually participating in it, when you talk about, race and things like that, is about mobilization, getting your people off the couch and into the voting booth or into that gym for a caucus, in this case, with Iowa. And when you look at the folks who are running, Bernie's people go hard for him regardless. Buttigieg showed that he has some chops, he has the organizational skills, and also you can also see that in the fact that when Buttigieg started catching fire, a lot of Obama's 08 people joined his campaign. And you're seeing some of those organizing skills come into play with the kind of turnout that Buttigieg got, as well as what a lot of people don't understand. campaigns are definitely about candidates, but they're about organization. And the reason I'm highlighting organization is that when this thing is said and done in Iowa, Bernie's gonna have more votes, but Buttigieg is gonna get more delegates, and it's delegates who nominate the eventual nominee, right? And when you ask how did that happen, it's because of the way the caucus rules works. Some of these rural areas in Iowa actually carry more weight than some of the population centers. And it's hard to even say population center with a state like Iowa, but still. And people who were in that Obama camp understand that. And so those guys went out there and organized and got those people to show up in those rural areas in Iowa, which is going to allow Buttigieg to walk out of Iowa with more delegates, even though Bernie got more votes. So it's not just about having a message. It's about also understanding the system and how the game is played.
And that's what I always said about Obama. And, you know, as we all know, or those of us that may know, you know, he mobilized the people so well because of his community community organizing background and his attention to community organizing and mobilizing the youth and just getting, you know, popular support, et cetera, et cetera. So I totally agree with you on that. I don't have too much to follow regarding the caucus, but going to Trump, our good old friend, Dick Stain Donald Trump, as Michael Rappaport has coined the phrase. The State of the Union address, starting with the snub of the handshake, going to the snub of the handshake, and the overall speech. What was your feelings, or what were your thoughts and feelings about this whole night?
Man, I had kind of mixed emotions watching the State of the Union. Part of me didn't even want to watch it, but I haven't missed one in I can't tell you how many years.
Mm-hmm.
So I watched it, and obviously that was the first thing I noticed was the handshake snub. And when I saw that, I thought to myself, it's gonna be one of those nights. And part of the reason why I thought that was that the White House normally releases like snippets of the speech, like about an hour, 45 minutes to an hour before the speech happens. And then, you know, you'll see the media saying tonight, the president's going to say the economy is the best, you know, da, 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 da. And this is why you should pass this thing that he wants to do to make it better or something like that. Right. And they didn't do that. They didn't release those snippets. Right. So it's almost like, why are they keeping it under the wraps? You know, where are they going with this thing? Right. So then.
Audio. We need you to link back in. Pausing on that for a second. So covering the State of the Union, we're talking about the snub of the handshake at first, and I think we're gonna delve into the actual content of the speech. So yeah, you were getting into the actual content of the speech and what the White House actually was releasing and what they were divulging before the speech.
Right. And so then when Pelosi introduced him, a lot of people didn't catch this, but if you're like a political junkie like me, I caught it right away. When she introduced him, normally when the speaker introduces the president, there's no like rule about this. It's just something that's just been done, right? Mm-hmm. They normally say, you know, members of Congress, I have the high privilege and distinct honor of introducing the president of the United States, right? And then they do the big cheer, and then he starts the speech. Pelosi didn't do that. And part of the reason she didn't do that is because what's happening with impeachment. She don't feel honored introducing this motherfucker. So she just said, members of Congress, the president of the United States.
Which in turn resulted in the snub of the handshake. Yep.
So now that happens. So now the speech gets going, and it's just lie after lie after lie after lie. Mm-hmm. I had a problem with that. And I get it that politicians lie, right? Sometimes they shade numbers where they may say, oh, we have the highest job growth since 1970, right? Because maybe if you go to 1965, you're only going to have the fourth highest. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So I get it that politicians are going to do things like that, right? That's just kind of par for the course how the game is played. But this dude was just out there with outright lies. The money he's given to historically black colleges, right? But what he fails to mention is that his administration took that money away and then restored it. So I don't get, I can't set your house on fire and then take credit for putting it out. You know, you know what I'm
Yes, he
saying?
did. Yes, he
So
did.
so stuff like that just bothered me. The game show aspect of it, where, oh, hey, here's this black kid who couldn't go to the school. Guess
Come
what we
on
got for you?
down.
Yeah, we got a scholarship for you. Hey, you missed your husband? He was in Iraq. Come on down. He's back. I brought him back for you. You look under your seat. You get a car. You get a car. You know what I'm saying? Like,
The
there's
100-year-old Tuskegee Airman and his
yeah,
mixed grandchild.
and,
Yeah.
and even that bothered me, right? Like, one, I mean, seeing somebody who was a Tuskegee Airman being honored, the guy was, obviously he's black, etc. For a person like me who's black, I served in the military, I liked seeing that. However, knowing the history of this president, right? Knowing the racism that he exhibits,
And the
and
intent.
then to see him use this person as a political prop,
Yep.
that shit just really bothered me, man. It
The
just really
intent.
bothered me. And then the highlight of the night for me, or maybe not one of the highlights that bothered me the most, is him giving Rush Limbaugh that Presidential Medal of Freedom.
Freedom. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Something that is a huge honor in this country, right? This man gave Rush Limbaugh the Presidential Medal of Freedom. That's the same award that was given to Rosa Parks, on her birthday, no less, yesterday. To Rush Limbaugh, like these two share the same distinct honor in our country. That shit it's just maddening to me, man. So I didn't have a good time.
It's a travesty, and like we said, the intent. It looks good, but the intent behind it, we know, is bullshit. And as I've been saying, man, I can't respect any Republican, any person, any voter, that takes the Donnie T, and you just look at patriotism and just the division and the mockery that's being made of the office and of our government. But let's keep in mind the people that say we don't ever give him a fair shake, right?
Mm-hmm.
We talked about the structure of the speech, and for the first time, it seemed as though he actually knew what he wanted to say. It was fluid. It was confident. It was, he didn't blink. He was poised. For once, he actually conducted a decently produced speech.
I agree.
So we gave you your one.
It seems like
one, assholes.
It seems like he read it. And normally when he gives a speech, I say this all the time, it seems like this is literally the first time he's seen these combination of words together. And you could tell when he does that, because he reads the speech and then he'll say something and say, not many people know that. He's really saying, yeah, I had no clue, because this is literally the first time that he's seen that information before, So last night, the speech, it was well written. It was well delivered, grading on a curve for Trump, because we've obviously seen better speeches given State of the Union. You can, probably chalk up 3-4 of Obama's, Clinton's, Reagan's. Reagan used to give great speeches for state. I mean, I was a kid back then. I wasn't into politics, but I've seen videos of it. But Reagan was a trained actor, so he knew when to speak with the soft voice and when to use the emotional inflections and things like that, But for Trump, this was one of his better speeches. And then at the end, it just, all of his shine got taken away from the moment of the night with the tearing up of the paper.
So yeah, diving into that. I'm glad you went into that, because my notes are all over the place in order. Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the House. She began standing up, ripping these large note sheets of the speech behind the president. Let me just lead with what I felt. I get it. I'm not mad at it entirely. I wish to some degree I feel better about her. And here's why. I feel like whether it was emotional, whether it was for attention, I just didn't think it was necessary. When President Obama was there, his speaker that we're not going to mention, I mean, looked at him with the most evil, cutthroat stare there could be possible. But he showed respect. He showed poise. And I think the theatrics of government now really showed its ugly head last night with the snub, with the announcement, and then the ripping of the paper. I mean, at some point, man, you guys are running the country. You're getting paid 400 grand plus to, or whatever your salaries are, to run this nation. And to me, it was the most childish act, looking like a bitter ex who didn't shake my hand with our kids coming out, and now I'm gonna show you. I mean, it just didn't, and has nothing to do with gender in that reference, ladies and gentlemen. But it just, I just was like, come on, man. Michelle said, when they go low, we go high. I'm just like, come on. It just, and then the memes, the gifts and everything that came from it, her walking out of the joint saying, "Oh, I tore it up, I ripped it up." It's just like, come on, when are we really gonna get better than this guy? And I don't even fully blame her. I think again, the antics and the nonsense that has been brought upon this guy's presence, I think people are just literally all in the pigsty at this point, and they're just like, we're gonna fight fire with fire. I didn't like it per se. I didn't hate it, but it was just like, come on, bro. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. It's like being in a boardroom and your boss is full of shit, and you just like, oh, this nigga's wow. You know what I mean? I couldn't believe what I was seeing, man. I couldn't believe it. With that said, she made the message clear. Here we are. What are your thoughts on the ripping of the paper?
So as you probably know, I disagree some.
Yes.
I mean, it definitely seemed like it was some, like you said with the boss thing, like some kind of passive aggressive shit, you know. But with that said, you know, I think you have to kind of look at it in the totality of things, right? From a holistic kind of approach, where since Pelosi has been speaker, and even before she was speaker, you know, Trump has called them to the White House, and he brings the media in, and then he berates them, you know, treats them like shit, you know. And Pelosi she's not one for the bullshit, you know. And the last time he had her at the White House, he called them over for a budget meeting. Trump walked in, basically told them if they didn't do what he wanted, then they can, you know, fucking kick rocks, whatever. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you remember that, when the picture of Pelosi like standing up, she's like the only person standing up pointing at Trump or whatever. Yeah. You know, so yeah, so you have shit like that happening, right? Then during the speech, he's calling them, you know, the radical left. He's calling them socialists. He's talking about her home state of California, being like full of crime, and it's dirty and all this crazy shit, you know. Mm-hmm. And I get it, right? Michael, your boy Michael Steele, former
Maryland Republican.
Yeah, former Maryland Lieutenant Governor Republican. He said on Meet the Press today, when they asked him about this, he said, look, I thought that what Pelosi did was beneath the dignity of the office that she holds. However, you go, girl.
Yeah, still, I mean, still has earned my love in the years, because I remember when he was a staunch Maryland Republican coming from one of the wealthiest counties in this state. Yeah, I'm with you on that. I get it. It's a culmination of things, and you keep poking the bear, but goddamn.
And I get what you're saying, and I have to agree with something like that, like with what Steele said. Like, Pelosi is the Speaker of the House. She's second in line to the presidency. She's a constitutional officer, right? And you have to show some kind of decorum. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, Trump's treating this shit like it's a pep rally, like it's the Oprah show and he's giving out shit. They're in there chanting 4 more years and shit. Like, you don't see shit like that during the State of the Union, right? Even in election years, you don't see that. So yeah, I wish that she had maintained the decorum, you know. But at the same time, I get it, man. Like, people only can take so much. We're human. You know what I'm saying? And at the end of the day, the thing that upset me about it, like when me and you were having the back and forth earlier today, I seen people online, oh, what is Pelosi thinking? Da, 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 da. And I'm like, look, man, we're talking about a motherfucker who just spent an hour and a half lying to us. We're talking about a motherfucker. And again, like I said this last podcast, and I truly mean this. When I watch Trump, I try to think of that guy who Steve mentioned, his Republican friend who likes Trump, right? And real talk, I'm starting to think that maybe Steve, but whatever. So,
shit.
But I try to think of it from that lens. Like, what does this person think about this? And that guy probably heard that speech and thought that it was pretty good, right? But I'm listening to the speech and I'm listening to a guy who's literally lying to me. I don't mean shading the truth. He's outright fucking lying, right? I'm listening to a guy degrade the office. I'm listening to the guy who snatched kids away from their children and put them in cages, who wouldn't give them soap to wash their hands or brush their teeth, right? Who got them in cells that are fit for like 15 people and it's like 40 motherfuckers in there, right? Breastfeeding babies, took them away from their mothers, right? We're looking at a guy who employs Stephen Miller, who's essentially a fucking white nationalist, who's the one writing our immigration policy right now. We're looking at a guy who surrounded himself with fucking criminals, campaign manager, deputy campaign manager, national security advisor, foreign policy advisor, all in fucking prison. We're looking at a guy who invited foreigners to interfere in our fucking elections, right? And people were pissed off about ripping up some paper. This dude is marching us towards fascism and authoritarianism, and we're talking about papers being ripped up. That was the problem that I had with the whole situation. Yeah, I get it. Show some decorum. You're the Speaker of the House. You know, you somebody has to be the adult in the room, right? But you know, we got to put things in perspective as well. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. With that said, let's quickly then talk about the Democratic response. And I'm sorry, I was saying, I think I might have been saying Pelosi. I don't know, but Pelosi. I'm sorry. It just flows. It just flows for me. Let's talk about the Democratic response. We had the governor from Michigan, which Michigan State is under fire for in their gift shop. I don't know if you may have seen this, but take a look at it later.
Okay.
Michigan State University, the flagship university, home of the Spartans of the great state of Michigan. They had, and this is just in relation to the governor's speech, but they basically had these dolls of black prominent figures being hung from the display with a white string around their necks. So shout out to Michigan State and the people in the gift shop. Hope you can get to the bottom of that. But yeah, your governor, she's extremely light on the eyes for me. And I think she delivered a great speech. VP, you wanna address who that governor is and how you felt she did for the Democratic response?
Yeah. So that was Governor Whitmore, Gretchen Whitmore. She's the governor of.
Horrible name.
Huh? What's that?
Horrible name, Gretchen, but she was great.
That is one of them old ass names, like
oh yes,
Gretchen or Gertrude or something like that.
Yes,
and she's only in her
White.
Yeah,
it's a Betty White era name.
And she's only like in her 40s, or you're thinking like, what the fuck was our parents thinking? You know?
Yes. Yes.
But yeah, Governor Gretchen Whitmer, she's the Democratic governor of the great state of Michigan. I hadn't heard about that Michigan State thing either, man. So I definitely hope they get to the bottom of that shit.
Mm-hmm.
But she delivered the Democratic response to the President's State of the Union. And these responses to the State of the Union, they're tough, man, because one, you have to write a response to a speech you haven't heard yet, right? And so you're kind of guessing at what the president's going to talk about and then try to make your points, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But with that being said, I thought that she did a good job. Over the previous few years, we've had disaster responses going back to the Republicans. You had Bobby Jindal, the governor of the state of Louisiana. His speech was insanely bad. You had Marco Rubio, who gave the response, which was supposed to be setting him up as being that future of the Republican Party. He's about to give this blazing speech that's going to rocket him to the top. And he had that water fiasco. So you've had horrible speech after horrible speech. The Democratic response 2 years ago, they couldn't even get an elected official to give it. It was Steve Bushehr, I think is how you say his name, who was the former governor of Kentucky. His son's the governor now. He just won the governorship last November. But he's the one who gave the response 2 years ago. And then Stacey Abrams gave a great speech last year. So it's a tough job following the president, especially given that, you know, he's getting all the applause, the pomp and circumstance and stuff like that. And then you
gotta actually listen to this asshole.
Yeah, you know, so it was a challenge to give that speech. But I thought that Governor Whitmer, she did a good job. For somebody who is fairly unknown in the party, that speech might have done a lot in raising her profile some. So, you know, good job. Kudos to her.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So going to the Republican response, our good friend Mitt, good old Mitt Romney, Senator, Utah. What do you feel? I mean, I've always him and who do we lose last year?
McCain.
McCain. Sometimes Paul, don't kill me. Sometimes Paul, I think have somewhat of a shred of decency in them. So I wasn't totally surprised, but I was kind of surprised. What did you make of his response?
So I actually was surprised that Romney voted to convict Trump on one of the articles. And just to let the audience know, what we're talking about here is that the Senate voted today on the articles of impeachment against Trump. Trump was acquitted of the charges in the Senate, mind you, with no witnesses. First impeachment trial in the history of the country to not have witnesses. But anyway, the Senate voted to acquit on the abuse of power charge. They voted 52 to 48, Romney being the sole Republican to join the Democrats to convict, but they failed to meet the 2/3 threshold required, which would have been 67 votes. And then in the obstruction of Congress article, that one went down 53 to 47. Romney didn't join the Democrats on that one. It was a straight party line. All the Democrats voted to convict. All the Republicans voted to acquit. But anyway, Romney voting to acquit was actually a surprise, and a lot of people were looking at, you know, people like Susan Collins or of Maine, Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, potentially Lamar Alexander of Tennessee, and all of these people basically got in line. Right? They got in line behind Trump and, you know, didn't vote to acquit him. They all said he did it, but we're not going to vote to impeach him. We're going to leave it up to the voters. And when you have that kind of sentiment, like, what the fuck do we even have impeachment for? You know, that's why they put this responsibility in the Senate's hand, which is what Romney said in his speech. Now, when Romney gave his speech, I watched it, and something that I've always thought about Romney, and you can't say this of a lot of politicians, you know that I'm not religious, right? And I know that you have, I know that you have your faith, you know, and even though I'm not religious, like I think, you know, there's a place for people of faith in this world. Some, people's faith, helps them get through tough situations, and things like that, and that's cool. But some people are just talk. They say certain things to get responses from certain groups, et cetera, especially when we're talking about politicians. But Romney seems to be the type of person who actually does believe in the thing that his Mormon faith teaches. And in his speech, he said that when they took their oath from the Chief Justice to do impartial justice, he said that he made a promise to God that he was going to look at the facts and judge Trump accordingly. And he said he is deeply religious and he takes his vows to God seriously. And he could not look at the evidence that was produced and vote any other way except to convict and say that Trump should be removed from office. So, kudos to him for, following through on his beliefs, which is something that we don't see a lot of politicians do. But I was surprised about it.
Yeah, I agree. With that said, what do you think this says about his future in the party? Maybe any future aspirations of running, once more, and has this had any shaking of the Republican Party, which just seems to be folding at the beck and call of Dick Stain Donald Trump?
So with that, I think Romney's going to have a problem with the party. And when I say the party, I'm talking about like the headquarters version of the party. So like the Washington, D.C. folks. Mitt Romney is a senator from Utah. Even though Utah is a conservative red state, they're Mormon conservative. They're not Christian conservatives. And them Mormons don't fuck with Trump. Yeah, they voted for him, but they don't really like him. Of all those like super red states, he struggled in Utah. He still won it, but he didn't win it by as much as other as other Republicans normally win it by. So Romney's going to be okay. As far as his future, Romney is somebody, it's not like he's trying to go be governor or something. He's already been the governor of Massachusetts. He's already run for president. He's in his 70s. He's independently wealthy. He's worth like $200-300 million. So it's not like he needs to leave the Senate and then try to get on some board at some company to make some money. He already got money. You know what I mean? And so that's what allows him to kind of be free of Trump to do things like this, is because he's not looking to cash in at the end of his service because he's already made his own money. Where some of these other guys, I read an article, not an article, but it was a reporter who wrote a Twitter thread on Monday, and he said he talked to some former Republicans and they told him it's hard to resist Trump while you're in office, and it's just as hard to resist him once you leave, because if Trump doesn't like you, then those opportunities that are there for former members of Congress, like, sitting on boards, maybe getting a fellowship at some think tank, maybe getting a job like inside the party or a state party or running for higher office, etc., those opportunities aren't there for you. So that's why a lot of these guys, even once they leave office, they continue to just shut up and let Trump do whatever, because they're looking out for the bag and not for the country, and that shit is shameful. But for Romney, he doesn't have those kind of concerns because he's already done it all. Like I said, run for president, been governor of a state. He's independently wealthy. So it's not like he needs them to do anything for him.
Right. He's kind of out there like, I don't owe you shit. And that, can't be bought, I guess.
Yeah.
In some ways, he's already paid. Great summary and of all of that. Backtracking a little bit, because I don't remember if last episode we covered this, or we may have. Bloomberg, Iowa Caucus, Sanders, Buttigieg, who am I missing? Warren, Bloomberg. Where after this caucus is still running, and everything that's going on, where does Bloomberg fit as a puzzle piece? Where does the Democratic Party shake out? Do we even still have a chance?
for the Bloomberg piece of the question, that's kind of TBD right now, to be determined. And the reason why is that Bloomberg got in the race so late that he's not on the ballot in the early states. So he's not in Iowa, he's not in New Hampshire, he's not in South Carolina or Nevada. So we're gonna see Bloomberg probably starting in Super Tuesday, when you have like, I think it's like 20 some states all go on that same day. That's when Bloomberg gets in the mix. But with that being said, Bloomberg is also, he's kind of out there, right? And because of how rich this dude is, I mean, Bloomberg could lose all of the money Trump says he has and still sleeps comfortable at night because he's that fucking rich. You know what I mean? He's worth like 50 or 60 billion dollars, right? And so with Bloomberg, he's out there, he's running nationally. He's running in every state at the same time. And candidates don't traditionally do that, right? Everybody was focused on Iowa. You had some folks who said, I don't have a shot in Iowa, so I'm going to focus on New Hampshire. Other folks said I'm focusing on South Carolina, one of the first four states, right? Bloomberg is everywhere. California, Oregon, Washington, Alabama, every other state, he's there already. TV, staff, ground game, right? Bloomberg is purging staff from other candidates because he's so fucking rich. He's paying these people 15, 20, 25% more than they traditionally get paid in the campaign. So somebody who's like a policy advisor, somebody who's like a senior policy advisor in a campaign might get paid anywhere from like $8 to $12,000 a month, right? Bloomberg is paying these people like $18,000 to $24,000 a month because it's nothing to him. You know what I'm saying? So, that's like pennies on the dollar to him. You know what I mean? And so, exactly. But because he's so rich, he's able to poach campaign staff. He's able to have campaign staff everywhere, TV everywhere. And he's going to be formidable, which is why I think that they're letting him on the debate stage, is because Bloomberg is basically running around campaigning unchallenged because he hasn't qualified for the debates because he doesn't accept donations. His campaign website don't even have a donation button on it.
So in that essence, are they just letting him run because they know he has the green, or do they actually believe he'll be a quality opponent or opposition to the Trump administration? I mean, what is the end game here? Like, are we still, as a party, is the Democratic Party still looking to see Joe, or like, what is the end game in allowing Bloomberg in?
Well, the party can't necessarily tell him he can't run, right? If you do the things that are required to get on the ballot in whatever state, then you're on that ballot, right? But as far as the debates are concerned, this is, the party does control that. I think it's kind of like I said a moment ago, where Bloomberg is running. He's running unchallenged because he doesn't get to debate because he's not meeting that campaign donation threshold. But he's out there beating up the other candidates, and they don't have a chance to challenge him directly, right? And so I think that's why they're letting him on the stage to say, hey, if this guy's going to be a player, then he needs to be in the mix, so that way everybody is hearing his ideas all at once on these nationally televised debates. And then if the party says, the voters say we want him to be the guy, then he'll be the guy. I don't think Bloomberg's a good choice. I think he's going to struggle with black voters due to his support for stop and frisk. But with that said, looking at a lot of our candidates, man, I'm worried, man. I went into 2018 feeling confident,
very optimistic.
Yeah, I was very optimistic, and now
I said we would be here.
Yeah,
I said we would be here.
I'm worried, man. I
said we would be here.
I'm very worried.
I was hoping what I think is more likely to happen. And no, I think what would more likely would have made sense, but might be less likely to happen, would have been for Bernie and Elizabeth Warren to, just say, hey, it's not about you or I at this point. You got loyal people, I got loyal people. I've got the smarts on whether it's Elizabeth Warren saying I've got the smarts, I've got the whatever. rally behind me, whatever. But due to their recent bullshit, we may be further from this.
Mm-hmm.
Joe Biden, I've said this for quite some time. I don't think he has the chops at this stage in his career. And I went back and I looked at the old highlights. Granted, his speech after the caucus, or well, during the tabulation of the caucus, was very sharp and a little reminiscent to his old self, but still very scripted and not a lot of that passion and fire from the hip that he used to just John Wayne it back in the day. But yeah, man, I don't have any faith in him. And then Bloomberg, I mean, he's got the green, he's got the cash, but what happens when he does start speaking? What happens when he does have to present a position? So shit, man. I am freaking scared.
Yeah. I mean, I agree, man. I'm worried, man. I am worried. I think I've said this before, and I think part of it is Biden's age. But also since 2012, Biden hasn't had to fight for anything, and this guy is vice president. When he's in a room, everybody stands up. When he starts speaking, everybody shuts the fuck up, and he just hasn't had to fight for anything, and with the polls all showing like, oh, everybody wants Biden. They say Biden's the most electable and da 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 da. He ran like that. Like, oh, okay, everybody says it should be me. So cool. I throw my hat in the ring and then it's just going to be me. And other people aren't saying, yeah, well, I'm just going to lay down and let that happen because they think it should be me too,
Right.
And Biden is not getting out there like being fiery like he used to.
Not at all.
He's starting to do that. I think Iowa was a wake up call for him. So today in New Hampshire, he kind of came at Bernie and Buttigieg a little bit, not with straight heat, but it seems like this is about to be the start of the heat coming. It's like today was like intro to, hey, I might be going after these guys. And then as the week progresses, he's probably going to start, coming with a little bit of a frontal assault towards Bernie and Buttigieg, because I think Iowa woke him the fuck up to say, hey, you could lose this thing, so we'll see.
Yeah. Okay. We're a little under an hour and a half. Yeah, man. I told you gonna get us going here. But real quickly before we get off, want to take time to recognize, for those of you that do not know, February is Black History Month. Black History Month began in 1915 after the 13th Amendment attempted to abolish slavery, but abolished slavery officially. And Carter G. Woodson and Jesse E. Moreland founded the ASNLH, Negro Life and History, study of Negro Association for the Study of Negro Life and History. And these brothers championed this month of celebration for Black people, Black being the acceptance of people that culturally identify with being Black in this nation. And we are taking time out to acknowledge the heroes, the people that have come before us, that have sacrificed, and even the people that are making history every day in this nation. So didn't want to be remiss and forget to acknowledge Black History Month. Certainly, educate your children, educate your family, your loved ones. For us at Castworthy, we're pretty much on Black History time every month. So I think we take pride and credit in that. But yeah, man, it's definitely, something to think about, to say, February is Black History Month. We got 29 days of February this year. And yeah, man, salute to the people and all power to the people on that note.
Definitely, man. I'm glad you said that too. And especially the part about educating your kids, man. Like, Black History Month is more than Martin Luther King, Harriet Tubman, and Rosa Parks. While they are important to our history,
Extremely.
they're important to our recent history. you know, well, not necessarily Harry Tubman, but the other ones. So yeah, educate your kids and have them learn more than just that stuff they're taught in school. You know, I mean, you have to educate yourself and educate them. You know, learn who some of these folks are, like a Denmark Vesey, for example. You know,
Brian Rustin.
yeah, you know, it's more than just Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Harry Tubman, etc. to our history. You know, um, so definitely do that, man. And like EJ said, you know, uh, educate your kids, man. It's just important.
Yeah, because like we've said on numerous casts, I just recently watched the Harriet Tubman movie with my daughter,
Hmm.
and it was a decent flick. I think I would have appreciated it more if they had shown her earlier years, and a lot of the brutality that she suffered, and just I think I would have wanted people often joust about this, saying we need to stop having slavery movies, blah blah blah. But I think it's important for our kids and our kids and even the kids underneath us in the generation behind us to remember the brutality that was real. Because if we allow the narrative to change, as we've seen in other school systems where the narrative is being spun that there was no slavery, that this was just something that happened, we'll forget, and we will forget where the undertones and the things that are happening, why they're happening, and where they come from. And the thing about the Harriet Tubman story, outside of the fact of how great she was and how strong she was, and just the determination, and just everything great about her, just geographically, people forget this. Her story happened in Maryland,
Hmm.
just below the Mason-Dixon line. So when you look at it, it's not the very, very deep South. You look at it, this is the mid-Atlantic region, where the fast East Coast pace, the snow, we haven't gotten shit this year, but you know it always strikes a chord to me, because when I go out to Eastern Shore, I'm like, shit. And if you go to Annapolis, and you'll see the Alex Haley statue and things of that nature,
Hmm.
this is a port state. So I think people forget how many slaves came and went from this state, and just how very real what our people went through
Hmm.
really was. So yeah, I'm with you, man. We definitely got to educate the kids, and continue to tell the story, and continue to create our own in that regard.
Yeah, you're 100% right, man. With the whitewashing of our history, and yeah, it sometimes it's tough when you see year after year it's all these slave movies and stuff like that. Like that's all of our history. But I think that they do need to show that stuff because a lot of that stuff isn't being taught in schools. And you have kids learning bullshit like oh, slavery was or not slavery, but like the Civil War was about economic issues and shit like that, or states' rights and stuff like that. And it's like, yeah, it was about economic issues and states' rights. It was about states' rights to fucking own people
Right.
and the economics of making people work for you for free. Slavery. You know what I'm saying? And
Hmm.
sometimes people, or not people, but our children aren't learning that shit in school, and we need to make sure that we're giving them those lessons so our history can't be whitewashed. While we do have great moments throughout our history, we need to also learn about those dark spots as well, so that way people can't whitewash that shit and act like it didn't happen.
Yeah. And like the old saying goes, if you don't know your history, you're doomed to repeat it.
Exactly.
And unfortunately, we are repeating it in many ways. I'm in the nation's capital, and in Baltimore, and the crime and the murder and the incarceration, the drugs. Um, it may be worse than it has ever been in the last 100 years or so,
Hmm.
more or less. No, I could say 100 years. Yeah, maybe in the last 100 years, man. We've probably created or subscribed to the systemic plan that or trap rather that was set for us, and we're climbing into a hole that I don't think we even have a plan or an idea how to get out of.
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty sad, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, you've been listening to the Castworthy podcast. Once again, the VP of Research and myself, EJ the Savage, our fearless leader, Big Steve, aka Uncle Ruckus, could not be with us tonight. But we send him a big salute and salute to the bookkeeper wherever he's hiding. Um, after his Philadelphia struggles, I think he's been kind of on watch and on notice. But yeah, man, it's been fun. You know, we did this thing, we got it going. Now I just need to figure out what to do after I hit stop. But hopefully I'll figure that out. But VP, man, do what you do. Take us on out of here.
Yeah, man. Hey, shout out to the bookkeeper E. He did have us over at his lovely abode for Super Bowl Sunday. Him and his lovely wife and his two sons
I
invited.
love that house. I love it.
Yeah, yeah. They invited everybody over for the Super Bowl, so we chilled out over there and watched. Had some burgers and wings and stuff, you know. But yeah, man, as always, we definitely appreciate you guys making that choice to rock with us and listen to us. And we definitely enjoy bringing you this content. And if you enjoy listening to this content, then we hope that you would hit that like button. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe. You can follow us on all of our social media at Castworthy, on Instagram at Castworthy_podcast. You can find our podcast pretty much anywhere that you can get podcasts, including Spreaker.com. Again, that's Spreaker.com, you know, YouTube, Instagram, wherever, you know, we're there. The last thing I'll say, like me and EJ talked about earlier with all this stuff that's happening, if you don't like what's happening, get your ass registered to vote. And then once you get registered to vote, get somebody else registered to vote. Donate to a campaign, volunteer, knock on some doors, do something, activate yourself. You can't just sit down and just keep watching and letting the stuff happen. So you got to go out there and get yourself involved. But with that said, folks, again, we definitely appreciate you rocking with us on the Cast Worthy podcast, and we'll see you next time. Peace.
Peace.